I'm Emily, Director of TLC Wellness. I am joined here today by Dr. Saviano and Dr. Buckwalter. So really my goal will just be for myself, or my role, I should say, is just kind of guiding and providing some questions and looking at letting people in the room and looking at the questions. But Dr. Saviano and Dr. Buckwalter are the holders of information here. So I'll let you both introduce yourselves.
I'm Dr. Buckwalter. Hi, good morning. I have been working in the mental health field for about 30 years, working in different capacities. At this point, really doing a lot of work with younger children, some teenagers as well, but mostly I would say very little children up to middle school age children. Working with a variety of different illnesses, different levels of services, a lot with people might be familiar with wraparound services, family-based services. And in that scope, I definitely see a number of children with autism, ADHD, as well as a lot of other diagnoses.
Hi, I'm Dr. Saviano. Most people just call me Dr. Sav. I graduated from Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine with my doctorate in school psychology. So I am a school psychologist, Pennsylvania and national certification. I'm a board certified behavior analyst, a licensed behavior specialist. And yeah, I've worked in lots of different types of communities. I've worked with underserved populations. I've worked in more affluent areas. I trained at CHOP in neuropsych and at the Center for Autism Research. So I really have had an emphasis on children and development throughout my career, but I'm now starting to do some work with adults as well.
Great. So we'll hop right in. So we'll be talking around the topics of assessment and steps for autism, ADHD, and learning disabilities, but then could also flow with whatever comes up within the context of that. So, and again, please, if there are specific questions that you're looking for, don't hesitate to put them into the chat. So I'll start, I guess I would call this the beginning. I think it can be really confusing for caregivers to know when to seek an assessment, what are things they should be looking for. I think especially, and I'm a parent of 3 myself, you see so much on social media. I call it the age of like the social media parent, right? Not everyone's on that, but many people are seeing some level of like things, from it's like information overload. So how would a caregiver or even say like a counselor of a school, if they're seeing things to recommend a caregiver get an evaluation, like what would you recommend are kind of like the flags?
As far as just in any scope, any type of diagnosis?
Let's start with autism.
Okay. So the thing I would say right at the very beginning, my experience has taught me that moms really need to trust their intuition. A lot of times, I've heard so many times over the years, moms tell me, I just always felt like something wasn't right. This wasn't feeling right. That wasn't feeling right. And a lot of other people will kind of poo-poo them, other adults in their lives, sometimes even the pediatricians, and parents will say, but I always knew, I felt it. So I would really say to trust that. As far as specific symptoms to look for when you're talking about your children, really as young as like a year to 2 years of age, some of the earliest signs will be kiddos not making eye contact with you. So maybe you try and call their name and they don't respond, they don't turn their head in your direction. A lot of times parents will tell me, well, we check their hearing. That'll be a very first step of what parents will be told to do when they go to their pediatrician. Let's make sure they're hearing everything. And the hearing tests undoubtedly or typically come back, everything is fine. So if they're not orienting to you when you call their name, if they're not engaging in what we call shared attention, so if they're not bringing toys to you, if they're not coming to want to be by your side, if you're holding a toy out and they're not coming to you to play with that toy together, if they're having temper tantrums that seem very excessive, oftentimes we'll hear parents talk about kids banging their heads. Maybe they'll bang their heads to fall asleep, bang their heads as a mechanism for soothing themselves. Just looking at my list to kind of highlight some of the other things. Sometimes kids will just kind of sit there idly, not really doing much. And this is when we're talking about a little bit of an older child. So obviously not a few-month-old child, but when you're looking at someone over the year age mark, they're not really playing with toys and just kind of sitting there, sort of listless looking, not really any interest in the environment. Sometimes kids are hypo or hyper responsive to stimuli in the environment. So maybe there'll be a fire truck that goes by, or you run the vacuum cleaner, or you run the blender, and your child begins to have a temper tantrum or maybe covers their ears. Conversely, fireworks, that'll be another one that families will tell me about, although I would caution, because I think that typically can upset a number of children, autism
I
or
was gonna
no
say the
autism.
noises are so hard, like the blow dryers, like it's just such a, yeah.
Mhm.
I feel
And
like
that's
those are
a
the ones that can be confusing.
yeah, that's definitely a point I want to get to later. So I think I'm going to hold on to that. But so, and also, or conversely, they can be under responsive to noises. So maybe there is a lot of noise and they don't seem to pay attention to it at all. And you're thinking, huh, that's kind of unusual. They could be sensitive to the feel of clothing. Maybe you're dressing them in the morning and they're having a temper tantrum. Um, Dr. Sav, I could go on and on. I could probably take 45 minutes just on that question. I don't want to dominate, so I'm going to turn it to you for a minute.
No, I know that was very well said. And, everything that I would want to look out for too. I think another big thing is regressions. So if your child, started, developing skills and then suddenly they lose those skills, right? And you're not sure quite what's going on. And behaviorally, we want to look at things like repetitive behaviors, unusual interests, right? I had a kiddo with autism who just loved elevators, and that was just like his jam. We would watch videos of elevators. But some of that sort of unusual behavior, Dr. Buckwalter highlighted the resistance to change, right? Those difficulties with transitions. And another one for our younger kids too is limited imitation skills, right? So being able to imitate what a caregiver is doing. And then there's also, some of the sensory sensitivities that were just mentioned.
I
So
would say with the repetitive, oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, along with those repetitive behaviors, a lot of times kids will watch the same video over and over again, or want to watch the same television program over and over again, almost like it's on a loop for them.
Mhm.
So if a parent was noticing some of these things, what would they do? Like, I think, what we really want to do is make this talk very friendly to just like
Mhm.
people